Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. Survivor is finally back, and Andy and I will be here with you every week to discuss the show, the strategy, personalities, and all the ridiculous minutia that makes this the game that we love. And since this is the start of a new season, and we're probably getting some new listeners, I think we should give a brief introduction. I'm John, and I represent the American opinion in this Survivor podcast. And Andy here speaks for the people and the moose that populate Canada.
I thought I just represented the right opinions of this podcast. And you're just kind of the color.
No, the far right opinions of this podcast. We should mention you're a radical
far right. There's no such thing in my country, dude.
Far right means that you only half-heartedly support gay marriage in Canada.
There's like no support or not support. It just is. But yeah, welcome to anybody that might be checking us out the first time. I imagine it was all the John Rocker fans that brought people in.
They were lured by your radical conservatism.
Oh, yes, very much so. We get really into Survivor, or we spend most of the real early parts of the relationship talking online about it until we're like, hey, we should put microphones in front of us because the world needs another podcast. And while we thought that idea was actually ridiculous, it turns out maybe the world did need another podcast because what you get from us that you might not get elsewhere, we're big into the strategy. We're big into diving into what makes good plays good, what makes Survivor history. And on that note, and we'll talk about it a bit more later, we spent the past several weeks talking about Survivor history. So it's nice to talk about new stuff.
Yeah, and speaking of the Survivor history, you should maybe plug the fact that we have an entire summer series on our website, which is purplerockpodcast.wordpress.com. You can see our season rankings, at least from our guests, and listen to us talk about those seasons with all of our guests. A lot of times we will bring on guests. This week you're just getting us, the smartest, most handsome guys that you can possibly discuss Survivor with.
Yeah, you'll have to take the handsome part for our word, and certainly don't check out our YouTube channel. But thank you, John, for being the blood to my water. Is that how it works? I'm not sure. And then just to get this out of the way, if you are a new listener, we are not a spoiler cast. We don't read spoilers. We don't enjoy spoilers. Unless you're like really strong spoiler, like anything in a preview or a write-up, we'll talk about those. Anything that is shown with between the lines by CBS is fair game on this podcast. Other than that, it might seem like we're talking about spoilers because our predictions are just that darn good. Except for last year when they were horrifically terrible.
Yeah, completely ignore all predictions from last year that disprove everything you just said.
Even though I just won a Survivor Fantasy League and you almost did. So apparently we kind of knew something, but... So, Survivor, San Juan del Sur, Blood vs. Water 2.
Your Spanish is horrendous. What was that season called again?
San Juan del Sur?
You're very, very close. I almost couldn't tell that you're not Mexican instead of Canadian. So yeah, let's talk about this season. We actually never did a cast assessment for this season, and for those of you that were wondering, it's mostly because we weren't really high on this cast. We'll discuss the cast briefly towards the end of the episode, but let's talk about what actually happened in the show. And let's start first with this format. Second iteration of Blood vs. Water, Andy. Tell us what's different this time.
First time with all new players. Last time they did Blood vs. Water, it was returnees and their fodder. This time it's all new people that, were applying to be on the Amazing Race and then got rerouted to an island somewhere. So
very accurate description.
I'm not even kidding. Like, I don't know. I don't have the research, but I'm almost positive that's like 75% of these.
There are some that it's very clear that that's the case.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fine. It's not like Amazing Race is a show that's bad at casting. It's not like they, grabbed a bunch of Big Brother rejects or something.
I'll take it.
And also, some people that were Big Brother rejects ended up being good survivors. So I'm not holding that against it, but I was always in favor of doing a Blood versus Water newbies season. And then once we started watching the cast previews, reading it, I'm like, oh god, this is the Amazing Race. This is how Amazing Race breaks its character stories. These are the dynamics. And maybe it's just because that's what reality TV does to families. But nah, these were people that wanted to be on a show that lets them travel around the world and eat and sleep, and instead none of those things.
And so not only that, thankfully, we got rid of Redemption Island. We were teased that there was going to be a Redemption Island this season. And I say teased in the pejorative sense, like Probst was mocking us. But instead, they scrapped it last minute. If you really care about the behind-the-scenes details, it's because they lost a pair of competitors before the season started.
Although they insist that's not the reason, but that's the
sure.
reason.
No, that's the reason. So anyway, no Redemption Island this season. Instead, we get the return of our beloved Exile Island. And we saw how it's going to work tonight, and supposedly this is how it's going to be for the upcoming weeks. I don't know what's going to happen once we eventually run out of matched pairs, but supposedly every week we're going to get matched pairs of people competing in those reward challenges with the loser going to Exile Island. And at some point, we're going to run out of pairs of people that can be competing against each other. Supposedly, Probst has a plan for this situation, though.
Yeah, and if you look at the last Blood versus Water, there were still pairings going into the merge. I think only 2 that were on the island, and then the third from the evil hell beast that is called Redemption Island. So, yeah, if they would want to continue this through to the merge, there's a good chance there'd be some pairings. But, man, would it have been scintillating last season if it was just a bunch of Katie versus Tina matches?
Well, it's funny that you called half of that cast fodder, because I was pretty sure that Sierra was the greatest survivor to ever play the game, judging from the way you talked about that season.
Yeah, well, Laura Maraska was the fodder there. Yeah, so what do you think of this loved one hero duel Exile Island stuff?
Yeah, so officially, and this was ridiculous, I just read this today, the competition arena that they're doing there is called Hero Arena. Where they're staging the Exile Island / Reward Challenge duels. Hero Arena. I think Rupert mailed in that suggestion. I don't think that was even from Tyler Perry. I think that was Rupert.
So in honor of the first Fallen from the first Blood vs. Water season, the hero Rupert, it was either Hero Island or Pirate Island.
So yeah, Exile Island is back, but they brought it back in the way that it was in Tocantins. I'm sure they'll never mention this because they like to pretend that all these twists are new. But last time this existed, they actually had a Exile Island alliance forming, a cross-tribal alliance. Never actually materialized after it got to the merge. But do you think that's going to happen this time?
I think it's far more likely to happen just because people will start to kind of get the sense of maybe who loved ones are pairing off with. And thus it would be a way of trying to form 2 loved one pairings. So if you're there with somebody's loved one, and I almost need a slide chart for this, but basically,
yes. Please deploy visuals for our audio podcast.
Yeah. So 2 people, 2 loved ones are pairing A, 2 loved ones pairing B. A, B meet on Exile Island. They would form a 4-person alliance amongst each other. That's kind of what I'm thinking might happen.
That sounded like a crazy attempt to recreate Brad Culpepper's attempts at addition.
At math? Yeah,
yes.
Well, you'll notice that I was using letters, because that's what I'm more comfortable with. So, yeah, that could happen, but more than that, I'm not sure about any of this. It seems like a lot of sound and fury over nothing, and it almost seems like an overcomplication to somebody who has watched Survivor for, I don't know, ever? But it's just like just the mechanics of it as they went last night were not elegant, and maybe after a few episodes it'll start to get smoother out and we'll figure it all out. But it all just has the feelings to me of like an audible they called on the spot and they haven't thought through all of the implications.
Which tends to end up pretty disastrously when they do that.
Yeah, I mean, even things they do think about, like, the cast will outsmart them on, and I think there's going to be hacks to this that could very well wreck it, if it's not already wrecked.
So my guess is that this came about mostly because they wanted to drum up the relationship drama that's going to take place. Like the way Probst was talking last night after Jeremy, God, I was going to say beat his wife. That doesn't sound right at all. After Jeremy defeats his wife at that challenge, it really made it sound like he was sending her off to death somewhere. And it's like, no, you know what? She's going off to exile. That really might hurt her game, but it's a game. She'll be fine. She's not going to die out there.
Yes, and obviously Probst is always going to try to find whatever dramatic angle he can to push. That said, it is a bad thing to be doing to your loved one at that point in the game. Not so much the Exile Island part, not so much the staying overnight, whatever. It's the before you even get to meet your tribe mates, you're being sent away at the key point in the game.
Yes, and yet I think in the future he's going to continue hammering this as if it's a terrible thing.
Yeah,
when it's going to be even less of a terrible thing each
whatever.
week.
Agreed. But so it's not just about Exile Island. That's what we're focusing on. But rock, paper, scissors to find out who gets to pick a hero to go into a challenge, who then finds out that he's competing against his loved one, who then compete. Hero gets reward, but there's more. Loser goes to Exile Island, which we later find out contains a hidden immunity clue. And then we find out also that hero winner has to pick somebody from his own tribe to go. And that's just too many moving parts for something to work properly.
Sounds complicated when you say it like that.
And it's just like, we don't know if that's the way it's going to happen next. Maybe next time they at least do away with the rock, paper, scissors part, and it's just like winner holds court.
No, next time it'll just be eeny, meeny, miny, mo, is what you're saying?
There you go. Flip a coin with the purple side. See what I did there?
I do. Drawing rocks.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's just too much. And like, that's like after the first commercial break, we're having to like piece all of that together. Like, the one advantage for this episode of doing something like that is it gave them an action beat within the first hour, because otherwise it was all just camp stuff. Yeah. Which, honestly, I think is good. I'm not sure I'm not high on this episode just because it was the first episode. It's feeling each other out. But I was appreciative that it was 90 minutes because it gives us a chance to kind of figure what these people are. It feels a little more lived in because generally it takes about half an hour's worth of time to get through the immunity challenge, decision-making, tribal council element. So to cram the other part into 30 minutes is basically impossible, especially if they're doing that day zero stuff, which I'm thinking will always be a feature of Blood versus Water seasons. Yep. And I'm not sure that it shouldn't be. It was a fine way to meet the couples and reinforce, especially for people that don't watch previews and don't read cast assessments, to learn who the pairings were. The first time, it was just like, oh, okay, Tyson girlfriend. But this, you had to figure out those relationships before they were wearing different clothes. So, yeah, it gave us something to do in the first hour, but that could have just been a normal reward challenge, and we wouldn't have had to go through all this confusing stuff.
So, as we mentioned, Jeremy wins the reward challenge. Actually, I don't even know if we mentioned that part, but so we watched the reward challenge. Jeremy wins. Obviously, his wife's going to Exile Island. Tell me if you agree with me on this. I think Jeremy killed it with the diplomacy.
Yeah, no, Jeremy was really impressive in that moment.
Awesome.
I think the feelings with his wife were probably fairly genuine. I think he gets that she's a huge fan of this show, as is he, by all indications. So he felt bad that he was kind of having to mess her over that way. But yeah, he reluctantly won, but still made sure to win. So he didn't put himself in the hot seat that way. And the way that Brad Culpepper did in the very first episode when he was like, I don't know, maybe I want to help my wife.
Well, I particularly liked the way he picked Keith.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't entirely clear to them. They just said they were going to Exile Island. I think the players still might have thought there was going to be a Redemption Island aspect to this game, so he might have been worried there was going to be a duel at some point. So he sends Keith, but suggests that he's sending Keith because, he wants someone that'll help his wife survive out there. This guy looks like he's a good outdoorsman. Probably in the back of his mind, he's thinking, also, Keith's an older guy, and if there is some sort of challenge element, she might actually beat him.
Yeah, and then also just fast forwarding a bit, his strategy seems to be to form alliances with women. So, didn't send a woman. Yeah, he sent somebody that wouldn't necessarily be a natural alliance partner for him, but did so in a way that I think he created an alliance partner down the line.
I tend to agree with you, yes.
Yeah, and it wasn't made clear, but when Probst said pick somebody, I wonder if he could have sent himself.
I actually thought when he said, I already know. I assumed he was going to say, yeah, I'm going.
Yeah, and that's a perfectly natural instinct, perfectly understandable, but that would have been a very bad idea.
Yes, terrible game.
Yeah, like Jeremy's chance to do well, and I think he has a good one, is to be the guy day one at camp and start building those relationships, and also just, this is the guy we need to survive the first half of the game. Instead, he can't be missing, for one, and he can't broadcast to his tribe that alliances with them will always be secondary to the alliance with his wife, which, I mean, of course, but you can't emphasize it. You can't put it in people's minds too far advanced.
Well, not only that, he's got his wife out on Exile Island with Keith, and you assume his wife's going to be talking him up so that if he does want to align with Keith when Keith comes back, the leverage is already there, that his wife's, put in some good words for him. Really, you assume this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. This is your partner that you trust. They're going to try to help your game. You're going to try to help theirs. So Keith comes back. He's like, oh, Jeremy's a firefighter. I'm a firefighter. Seems nice. I'm going to trust him.
Well, like I say, that was just fortuitous, right? That they were both firefighters. I mean, that Jeremy isn't that difficult to ascertain. I believe he was wearing a T-shirt that basically gave that away. Yep. Although I'm not sure Wes picked up on that.
Wes is not so good with the reading.
Not Wes.
No, but I think you're right. Wes probably didn't pick up on it either.
No, he was too busy puzzling out who this large man on his team was.
That'll be our
Other
next
than that,
topic.
Val didn't seem to do the greatest job in talking him up.
I mean, we only get to see so much.
Yes, of course.
Even in a 90-minute episode, you can only see so much conversation.
Yeah, but what I'm referring to is when she gets an immunity clue and he doesn't, and not only does she not share that information with him, which, that's fair. I understand not wanting to. But she doesn't really seem to share much of anything with him at that point. And I think she got lucky that Keith is just not somebody that would hold that against her. Like, if you were Keith in that scenario, and you drew the blank thing, and the person next to you didn't, you know what's going down, and you're going to push to kind of get that info, aren't you?
I'd be like, oh, let me see what it says. Like her only move was actually something that I saw somebody suggest online, and that would be to say, oh, it says I'm not allowed to let you read it. Because then you can be like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's a game rule. Like, that maybe convinces me. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, no, what does yours say? Mine's just blank. Here.
Although you only get that once, right? Because if you go back to MXL, that chick was lying to me. It doesn't say that at all.
Exactly.
I mean, that's always the danger. Everybody's, always likes to be like trickery, like, oh, they should lie about what's on the clue. It's like, well, you get to keep every clue, that'll work. But eventually your lie will be exposed.
So we briefly mentioned Wes's inability to identify a certain someone. That certain someone is John Rocker, or as he introduces himself, John Wetland, although he spells it wrong. Or at least, if he's doing what I assume he was doing, he spells his fake last name wrong.
What do you assume he's doing? Spell it out for us.
Yeah, so I should explain. John Wetland is actually a former Major League Baseball pitcher. I am not a baseball fan, but I used to be, so I recognize that name. Here's what I think was happening, because a lot of people were already trashing Rocker, like, oh, why would you be so stupid as to pick another baseball pitcher?
Another closer from the 90s. Yeah.
I think this was, trust me, this will be the only time I ever defend John Rocker, but I think what he's doing is, Rocker is huge, he's loaded up on steroids, so he's super muscular, he's like 6'4". It's going to be very difficult for him to lie about his athletic past. He might be able to hide the fact that he was a bigot. So saying that he was John Wetland, he can still say, I was a pitcher, blah, 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 all these things. And it could be roughly true, while also denying the fact that he's had some, let's say, interesting ideas about foreigners, single mothers, and gays.
The city of New York, yeah.
City of New York.
That's right. I mean, if he's Wetland, he won a World Series with New York. He's the king of New York. Yeah, I think other people have pointed that out where we discussed Survivor, and I think that's probably about right. He could tell with Wes the jig was, if not up, close to being up. That he knew he was a former pitcher. Obviously, he already knew his name was John, because that's how they're introduced. Right. He's like, I think I know you from TV. I think you're a pitcher and all that. So then either Rocker had this in his back pocket, or, he was on the spot. Like, another John, Wetland. And, if it would have worked, probably would actually, I would have tipped the cap to that. It's like, yeah. And
That's
then
what
he
I'm
could
saying.
just go on talking about his exploits as long as somebody doesn't quite know enough.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, I pitched in the majors. Now, National League versus American League, but Wetland pitched in the National League before he was a Yankee. He was an Expo. Like, everybody keeps talking about him being a Yankee. He was an Expo.
Your Canadian pride shining through. Who cares about baseball? Let's talk about a good game, Survivor.
This is a season with a baseball player. Like, this is in play. We get to talk about it a bit. Or I guess to, I suppose.
Believe me, Survivor will talk about it a lot.
Do you think they'll talk about it as much as The Amazing Race? The Amazing Race, what do you think this compares to their time on The Amazing Race? Is this anything like The Amazing Race, Amazing Race?
Ugh. Like, why even bother having promos for that show during Survivor when you're actively talking about it during the episode?
I wonder if The Amazing Race will put the clips of Probst drawing all that conversation about The Amazing Race into their next Emmy package, which they will win because Emmy voters are lazy and they don't want to admit the reality TV is a thing. So, like, just vote for that one again. It's not that popular.
Yep. Vote for the incumbent. So let's talk about someone that I want to talk about. Dale, because Dale, it looked like it might be a bad episode for him. Most of the time, he's off on his own. You're thinking, uh-oh, Dale's not really building up any social connections here. He does start fire using his glasses.
A la Yao Man.
Exactly, although Baylor's like, oh, I don't know you could do that. Clearly, Baylor, not a longtime Survivor fan.
Yes.
But the one thing that I haven't seen too many people talking about is Dale grabs this bizarre idol-like substance at the well and takes it, throws it in his pocket. So when that doesn't come out at Tribal Council, at that point, you know Dale is safe. Because Survivor doesn't show you Dale pocketing what could eventually be used as a fake immunity idol and then have nothing come of it.
Right, so you would expect him to pull it out and put it around his neck before votes are cast.
Yes.
Because obviously, playing a fake idol after the votes are read is, wow, always hilarious. Not very useful.
And yes, I should clarify before we start getting hateful, angry emails and tweets. I recognize that in Fiji, they did show Yao Man making a fake idol that was never found or used or whatever. Fine.
Well, that was the first time. That was the first time anybody had ever, at least to any demonstrable level, come up with a fake idol plan. So of course they're going to show that. It's a fun piece of color. It's like, it's a new idea.
Right.
Also, so much of that season was awful, and Yao Man was delightful. Of course they were also going to show it then. But yeah, since that time, it's something that's going to come into play, even if it feebly comes into play. It's not always going to be, Ozzy tricking Jason or Bob tricking angry guy in Gabon. Randy.
Yeah, that guy.
Sometimes it's, like, oh, I got a fake idol. And they're all like, sure you do, buddy. Sure you
I
do.
will say, if this leads to another it's a f***ing stick moment, that's going to vault this season up a few spots on the rankings.
But it couldn't, because what he's doing is convincing. And to your point about them not showing it is in our interview with Tony, which, if you're new to the show, we interviewed last season's winner, Tony, over the summer. You should check it out. He talks for a long time. He said he was gathering things for a fake idol throughout, like, the first part of the season. And, in fact, one of the reasons why Sarah was so convinced he did not have an idol at the merge was that Tony showed her his fake idol. We didn't get to see any of that because it didn't matter. It didn't come into play. So now Chekhov's fake idol is out there, and at some point it's going to have to go off, is what you're suggesting.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm so glad that you mentioned Sarah, because that kind of leads into something else I wanted to talk about, because Baylor and Josh, I hear a lot of people talk, or I see a lot of people talking. I'm reading Survivor stuff, so I'm seeing a lot of people talking about them and very impressed with them. I totally don't see it. As I was watching the episode, my mind immediately drifted like, oh, Josh is the Sarah of this season. Did you get that same impression?
No, I didn't. I'm not going to lie, but I see what you're saying. And that the swing vote who doesn't play it correctly, is that what you're kind of getting at?
No. Actually, what I'm thinking is he's someone who seems like, because last year both of us were very high on Sarah before the season started. Josh seems like he should have all the right tools to be a good Survivor player. And I feel like his story is going to end much like Sarah's did. He's not going to go very far.
Yeah, my thinking on Josh was, if not a roller coaster, a big kind of bell curve this episode. going in, I didn't think a whole lot of him, much like almost the entire cast. He and Reed, when they said, "Oh, we'll entertain people," I was like, nope. Because anybody who thinks that their local brand of color will add to the tribal life is usually wrong. It usually just becomes annoying to people who are hungry. The exceptions being somebody like Tyson, who apparently everybody just finds is funny.
And Carter. Let's not forget Carter.
Carter is the most delightful human ever. As the episode goes on, I can see what people are talking about or writing about, to your point. My opinion of Josh actually was growing quite a bit, and some of it was just the evidence. Everybody was coming to him. It felt like. Really, if you think back on the edit, maybe it was like 2 people, or maybe 3. But kind of like the guys weren't really looking for Josh's, like, what do you think? It was kind of like, oh, Josh is with us, and this is what we're doing. But it certainly seemed like he was a bit of a power broker, or at the very least, a trusted figure. And that actually was confirmed again at Final Tribal Council, when I believe it was Wes who pointed him out as the guy everybody likes. So if you can get people to have that level of trust that early in the game, that's huge. But then he pulled his decision and his moves, and my thought on him plummeted.
Okay, so let's talk about that decision.
Yeah.
He is, as you said, he was the swing vote, theoretically, as they're going to council, because it looks like, at least from what we're shown, it's going to be a male-female split when it comes to the votes.
And it's an uneven number, so I guess
yes.
He's... now, well, Nadia might think he's female. He's clearly a male, but he was one with not necessarily, ready to vote along those lines. So I believe he was the swing vote. I don't think that was manufactured. And to his credit, he recognized that, well, hey, it's kind of cool that I am. Also, this position can suck. And that's how we can respect him. He's clearly a fan, because most people don't recognize that being a swing vote is really fun and powerful for like all of 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and
for one vote.
Yeah, well, not even the vote. If you take too long before you just say, if you choose your side, you might just go home that episode.
The Christie corollary.
Yeah, exactly. And it's happened a few times since then, too. So, yeah, that all went well. But then, to your point, and what we'll discuss is his decision. And his was the decision. There's not really a lot to unpack when it comes to the decision of Dale to target Nadia or Nadia to target Dale. Basically, they were 2 people on the bottom that found the other person on the bottom and constructed arguments against them. It's standard Survivor.
Right.
But Josh had a decision to make, and he went about it in an unusual way.
So he punted on that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of. I shouldn't say he totally punted it, because what he did is he knew he had Baylor's vote, so I assume, and she basically outlined it for him, like, wherever you tell me, I'm going to vote. So presumably he told her, all right, it's Nadia. And then what seemed like a very bizarre decision, he throws his vote at Baylor. Now, I did read some stuff. I haven't seen any video footage to indicate this, but someone was saying that the strategy there is that Josh is trying to make it look like Baylor is the next lowest, or the next target, basically, amongst the females, so that the guys can then somehow use her as a swing vote. There was some complicated reasoning behind it, but is that really good strategy?
And I will say, yeah, we've got to be missing some piece of the pie, and maybe it is some deep strategy like what you're suggesting. I think it's also possible that it's just simple, personal stuff. Like maybe he had given his word to Nadia that he wouldn't write her name down, and he just voted for the person he knew would not take offense. Or maybe, I think this was in EW, I haven't read it myself, I just heard this on the Know It Alls podcast, which I haven't even listened to all of. But it might have been a purely emotional decision that Josh at Tribal Council just felt bad for Nadia. The way she was saying how she doesn't have a family now, that she's not attached to her twin, this is her family, and then she was about to get voted out, even though she kept calling him a woman, basically. So that he just didn't want to pick on her some more. And if it's either of those, then no respect for Josh as a player. But even if it's some complicated strategy, still no respect. This is not the time to mess around. This is the time to pick a side. It's just fodder. If you want it to be Dale, fine, it's Dale. If you want it to be Nadia, it's Nadia. He made the choice. He made the choice that it was going to be Nadia when he relayed that information to Baylor. Not committing at that point just shows you're not a team player. And it could have worked if it wasn't Baylor. Maybe he threw a vote to a different woman or a different guy or whatever. But like the idea that he's like trying to keep the women on the hook. It's like, well, they know you didn't vote for Dale, dude, and they know that like Baylor didn't vote for herself because that is against the rules. So this random vote out there, there's a limited number of people who it could be for. And I'm guessing they'll puzzle it out pretty quickly that it was you and that you are not a team player.
So here's what occurs to me. That tribe has Wes, Drew, and Baylor on it. And
Alec, not Drew.
Oh, it's Alec. They're so interchangeable.
Yeah, little Drew.
Exactly. So it has those three people on it. Those are three of perhaps the best pawns you could ever possibly have in this game. Mm-hmm. None of them seem to have an independent thought in their head, basically. They're all perfect to bring along with you because they're never going to have plans of their own. They're not very bright people. They seem like they might be loyal. Mm-hmm. So why then doesn't somebody, and I'm not saying it's Josh, anybody really, maybe Dale would have difficulty with this because these three might not relate to him very well. But why doesn't somebody grab those three and say, oh man, all I need is a fifth here and I'm good? Because that's easy pawns.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Josh was set up. And, like, that's not just theorizing. Like, canon to the show, he was called out as being the trustworthy person. Canon to the show, we saw people coming up to Josh and saying, what do you think? He should have been able to spin that into a very good situation for himself. To your point, the guys probably have the most amount of pawns. So deciding to side with Dale versus Nadia is a very good decision. But then what he did at the end undoes that.
Yeah. Like I said, not super impressed with Josh. We should maybe start talking about the cast at some point. So let's lead in with Josh. I really don't have a ton to say about him. I mean, I watched the cast preview videos, and both the Broadway boys and the Twinnies, I really have nothing to say about. Is there anything that struck you in their videos?
It was heartening to see that the not quite Broadway guys.
Hey, one of them is a Broadway guy.
Well, yes, in the fact that he did stunts, I suppose, for the Spider-Man show. But yes, Josh has not yet made it to Broadway. It's a physical place. I think he's done off-Broadway things. But they are fans. They are very excited to be there. And look, I'm the last person that gets super excited for fans versus recruits. I don't care if you're good, and being a fan doesn't necessarily make you good. But it was encouraging that they were here to play Survivor. But at the same time, yeah, the things like, oh, we're going to entertain everybody. We're very big Christians. Yeah, that was sort of like, meh. So my reaction to that was meh. To your point about the 20s, I stopped watching Amazing Race many seasons ago. Not that it's a bad show, although I think it was getting worse, but just it's a repetitive show. So I've never experienced them before. I don't have preconceived notions, but certainly you do not have to go very far in the Survivor community to hear that they are, at the very least, divisive figures.
Yes, which struck me as odd because I watched their preview video and I really felt nothing strongly either way. I wasn't totally annoyed. I wasn't totally in love. And those seem to be the two extremes to where the opinions seem to fall around the 20s.
Honestly, if I hadn't heard that they were Amazing Race players and that people had these opinions of them from their write-up, I kind of would have been on board. And they actually seem like they could be the kind of people that would do well on Survivor. They're CrossFit trainers. They're competitive. They've had some worldly experience. But, I mean, just the fact that they were twins, I was like, I don't care if you're the nicest twins in the world. You're not going to do well in this scenario. At least not both of you. Right? Like, you can lie to your alliance that you're going to, my son's got to stand on his own 2 feet, or, it's just a brother. What do I care? Or even as long as one of us wins, the money's going to our household anyway. So, if it's my wife has to get voted out on the other side, that's okay. But you can't do that with, the person with I shared a womb,
So this is basically the best possible outcome for Natalie, then?
Absolutely. Without 100%. I think if she was ever going to have a chance, this is it. So, yeah, I didn't have I actually had a good impression of them. I just didn't like both of their chances in the game. And then knowing that a lot of people didn't like them, including by the preview videos, it seemed like Dale was one of them. I was like, yeah, they're toast. And that's what happened. I think whoever landed on the tribe with Dale was either they were going to win over Dale or they were going to lose. And it was interesting that the first episode came down to that.
So Drew and Alec, watching their video, it seemed to me like a just evil attempt by Survivor to instill PTSD in all of us who hated Survivor Nicaragua and hated watching Fabio win.
Yeah, they come back to Nicaragua and then double down.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they were like, hey,
Fabios.
Fabio was the best part of that season. Which is why it's the worst season in the history of Survivor.
Which should explain why it's the absolute worst season Survivor's ever done.
Because both of those things are absolutely true. Fabio was the best part. So they're like, we got to do that again. Yeah, I know. There's no substance there. Now, what's weird to me is there are some people that we converse with Survivor about that seem to be like really pro Alec. Like, not really pro in the sense like, oh, I love Alec, he's great, but like in the sense of this pairing, he seems like the better one or the smarter one, and I don't see that at all. Like, I think Drew is, for what passes for, the brains of that operation.
No, there is no brains of that operation.
Well, I mean, in a sense, I think he has more than Alec. It's just he's also, the more arrogant one and probably the more annoying one. But those traits might not necessarily hurt him in Survivor, at least, to progress to the bottom third stages of it.
I think the big argument in favor of Alec, the people that were saying Alec could do something in the game, is basically Alec can fly under the radar. That's what the people were saying. He's dumb enough that he can be a good pawn and he'll get far into the game, and maybe he's with some awful people and he wins like Fabio did.
Yeah. Or it could just be sympathy, because you watch their video and it's like, get a load of this douchebag with Drew. Like, yeah, he's off-putting, but he at least seems like there's a few reasons for his arrogance. Whereas Alec is just kind of the little brother who's had to deal with this his whole life, so maybe you just kind of feel sympathy for him. But like, the guy is drawing flies, and like anytime he's not talking, his mouth is just hanging open so that he can
you're
bring
not
a little bit of oxygen to his brain.
You're not doing any sort of like wordplay there. No, he's really like mouth breathing the entire time.
I watched it like closely a couple times because you and I play in a Survivor pick league where it's a snake draft. You have to draft people. And I had the 16th pick. And at that point, the pickings were very slim. I
texted you and I said, you said, who's available? And I said, the young douche is still available. And you're like, I'm going to need more information.
Yes, young douche does not get specific enough with this cast. But yeah, I was like looking at it all and it's just like, So I was like, just on first glance, it's like, okay, well, Alec. He's probably reasonably athletic. He could win some challenges and all that. But I watched him. I was like, there's nothing there, man. This guy is just a tabula rasa, blank slate dummy.
Oh, and what a perfect lead-in, by the way. I hope you're done talking about them because I was going to skip to someone else. Speaking of blank slate, John and Jacqueline, they have this sweet, wonderful story. They want to win the money so they can have a surrogate and have a baby. Jacqueline doesn't have a uterus, but she's a former Miss Michigan, and John was this college football player. His father has this inoperable tumor. I mean, they're fairly attractive people. Why do I have absolutely no interest in rooting for them? They are the living incarnate of bland. Like, Cowboy Rick looks at them and says, get some fucking personality. They are so god-awful boring.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is because we are internet cranks, right? We do not necessarily have the same
emotions
as, middle America will say. And obviously when people say that, they're being a little
middle Canada there?
No, it's all Canada, by the way.
Oh. Rather than saying middle America, did you guys say like, oh, that's like what the Newfies think or something?
Well, that's the thing. Like, our people are like, they're either like the prairie people or the Newfies, and so it doesn't fit as nicely as Flyover. But yeah, there's just nothing really all that interesting. They seem like perfectly nice people. I imagine if like me and my wife and you and your wife were at like a couples party, and they would be perfectly fine to be on my Pictionary team. But
yeah, Jacqueline looks like she's killer at charades.
But yeah, as of now, there's nothing interesting about these people. Even their struggles, which, while I'm sympathetic, are, standard issue struggles. And also, we're not the kind of people who care about struggles. And when I was talking earlier about this being very Amazing Racy, that sort of thing happens in Amazing Race all the time.
This was the exact couple I thought of when you said Amazing Race recruits. Yeah. Because they totally fit the bill.
Like every season they have, a blandly handsome, either dating or married couple, young. And then every season, and sometimes they're the same people, they have people with a heart-tugging story. This is why they're doing the race. They need this money. The year I started watching Amazing Race was, of course, because of Rob and Amber competing in it. The team that they lost to were a barren couple who were hoping to raise money so that they could get IVF. This is literally torn from the pages of The Amazing Race. Yep. There's just, they could do all right. I ended up picking Jacqueline with that 16th pick because I was just like, she could be the wallpaper that sticks around long enough, and you get points for longevity in this game. John seems like the kind of workhorse, athletic guy that, you're not going to want to get rid of in the first half of the game unless he becomes annoying to Brad Culpepper levels, and I don't think he will, unless he just keeps egging on those monkeys. But yeah, there's nothing interesting there. They're Barbie and Ken, complete with the non-biologically working parts.
Yeah, and we should... nice. And we should point out that these were actually the two people that we picked for our fantasy teams. We have two others that we'll get to later. Also another couple. We each got different sides of couples on
pairings.
Pairings. Oh yeah, you should say.
Let's just talk about them now. So we have Dale
we'll lead into Dale and Kelly. So
you have Dale, I have Kelly. Obviously not a couple, but a pairing.
So speaking of relationships, did you think it was weird that Dale and Kelly mentioned that they hadn't talked for like 3 or 4 years straight and they never said why? It's like if they're introing the twinnies and they say, oh, here's twin sisters, they were on The Amazing Race, and one has a prehensile tail and they like to read books. And they just blow by it like it's, wait, what was that tail part? Like, maybe I would like to know why Dale and Kelly didn't speak for 3 or 4 years. Or is this the RS and Vita situation where we're going to have to hear about their relationship-y drama for episodes after episodes?
Yeah, maybe this is a positive sign of their success in the game, that they didn't have to get all the story out now. Because you say you knew that Nadia was going home when the fake idol didn't come out. Yep. I knew she was going home when they could not stop talking about her experience on The Amazing Race, because it was clearly they needed to get all that footage out now because she was not going to be around for another episode. Just like they would have to heavily feature Jimmy Johnson early in the worst season ever, because it's like, this is all we got. In fact, maybe Natalie's going home next. That would be... Apparently, that'd be pretty familiar for them because they were the first people eliminated in their return to the Amazing Race. Maybe that they're not diving into that is because, there'll be time to get into that. Do I think it's weird that a father and daughter didn't talk for years? It happens. I mean, you get the impression both from their time at Day Zero and their videos that the relationship is mended. But if they were on the Amazing Race, and I don't doubt that they applied for it, that would have been in a lot of the videos, and they'd be mentioning it a lot. We've had our struggles to overcome in our relationship, but we really think this time on the race will bring us together, because they do that story all the time too.
I just, as a parent, and you're a parent too, it just occurs to me like, I don't think I'm going to go for years without speaking to my kid, unless perhaps my kid is a murderer. Hey, knock on wood.
Yeah, but, our kids are little. Nobody's like, this person who can't even wipe themselves. I'm a bit going to distance themselves.
That's true.
Or, you have to think, at this stage, we still have to think of ourselves as children, right? Were there times when maybe with our own parents, could you envision that happening? No, obviously it didn't. But, it's like, you get busy, maybe you disagree on things. I've seen it happen.
You get busy for 3 or 4 years.
Well, she wanted to leave the farm.
Now, if she said, I was in the Peace Corps for 3 or 4 years, and I was in Ukraine, and I was in some farm in rural Ukraine, and I couldn't call home. Okay, well, that's understandable. Maybe you could have written a letter, but whatever, I understand. People don't like writing letters anymore because it's not the 1920s.
That's right. I mean, Farmer Dale just doesn't have the Instagram and all of that, so what are you going to do?
Sure.
I gotta say, I don't care because I'm not the soapy gossip that you are. I don't really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, let's throw stones, buddy.
So yeah, I drafted Kelly with the first pick overall, or the fourth pick overall, I should say, and I might have used the first pick overall. I am bullish on Kelly, or at least I was going into the season. I think she has the package of which would allow you to win her. Well, if it was a guy, that'd be phrasing. She's reasonably athletic. She grew up on a farm, thus I would assume she has some level of work ethic, and in the interviews they suggest that to be true. So I think she'll be useful. She's moved out. She's in marketing. She's gone to the big city for a farm girl, which is either Portland or Seattle. I don't know. It's a reasonable sized city. So I think she could integrate socially. She's not an unattractive person, which Probst seems to think is one of the three things necessary to win Survivor.
And we'll get to that attractive thing later.
Yeah, I think I had my eye on her as a winner. Obviously, she was barely in this episode, but I don't think that doesn't concern me. We didn't know who Kim Spradlin was for a few episodes. You just kept calling her Bridal Shop.
Did I?
I believe you did.
I think
we didn't have a podcast then, but
that's true. You have no way of proving it. Yeah. Anyway, both of us pretty high on these two. Dale, I did have concerns about because he's an older guy, but he's also a big fan of the show. He compared himself to Big Tom, which I think was a pretty big stretch. Actually, that's a nice lead into the two people that come a lot closer to a Big Tom comparison.
Dale basically drew the short end of the stick in that, and this is why it was tough picking people. Sometimes it just comes down to demographics in your alliance. But
exactly,
he navigated that the first time, and I think that and being able to create the fire should insulate him well enough that he now has a chance of integrating himself. And whether he succeeds or fails on that level is on him.
As long as he's not a massive liability in some way, he's probably positioned pretty well now.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying, the actual Big Tom corollary here should be Keith. Our good friend Matt, who was on the podcast recently, he compared Keith and Wes to Big Tom and his son Bucky Bowe. I think that's being a little generous and premature. Plus,
especially because somebody else came with the perfect Wes comp.
Oh yes,
yeah, and
someone did.
Yeah, we don't know their username. Sorry, they're on the AV Club. That's where we do a lot of our conversing before this podcast. Wes is the chubby Steve Holt.
Steve Holt,
and a better comparison has never been made.
Yeah, if you're not an Arrested Development fan, just Google Steve Holt and look at the picture of Steve Holt versus Wes.
I believe it might have to be Steve Holt exclamation mark.
Yeah, you got to throw the exclamation point in there. Anyway, Keith didn't seem terrible, and I remember thinking in the videos, like, he might be decent or he might be awful, because his bio says he wants to bring beer and dip to the island, so that wasn't too encouraging. But
yeah, he's a firefighter, so he might have that actual man strength.
And he might have some, southern charm that people are like, oh, you're so quaint.
Yeah, and it would just kind of matter where he fell again. Sometimes it becomes a problem if you are somebody with too strong a work ethic, if you wind up in, say, the younger tribe. Yep. Because then you're just not integrating socially and you're annoying people. Even though you think you're being a provider, and maybe you even are. They're like, we just want to hang out and maybe start.
You're shaming us with all your work.
Yeah. And sometimes people do that, right? They get really pushy. Like, are you guys going to work? It's like, you know what, Roger? Maybe we don't need that much firework. But I think it worked out pretty well, Jeremy, I think, probably rightly recognizes that he's a useful tool. Missy, I think, could talk to him fairly well. So I think, Keith could kind of do all right. And also, he seemed like a character we could get into.
Hey, speaking of useful tools, though,
Wes. That's Wes. Well, useful.
Yeah,
certainly
useful
he could be
as a member of your alliance.
If
yes,
somebody used him that way. Unfortunately, it kind of looks like the person best positioned to do that would be John Rocker, who was on the Breaks when they were awesome.
Let's lead into that one then, because John Rocker and his girlfriend Julie. I was actually going to make the joke that because I'm not a baseball fan, that I didn't know Rocker's past. Yeah, I'm very aware of Rocker's former comments, and not even, I shouldn't say former, because it's not like he's made a huge attempt to distance himself from that. Like, I would understand it, it's been, whatever it's been, 15 years or something like that. since he made comments disparaging minorities and single moms.
The arc of
gays.
history is long. He may have been able to see his ways. There's been a lot of social progress. But no. He pretty much seems to stand by it.
No, if anything, he's gone the other direction and just dug in his heels, and he's fighting even harder.
Yeah, it's the damn liberal media that cost him his career.
Yes. I don't have a ton to say about them, other than I just want to call them Bigot in the Spray Tan the whole season. It's a good nickname for that, too.
Yeah, I really... we talk about having an ambivalence towards this cast before the season started, and obviously there's been some earning of that throughout, but it could just be, it's like, really, Survivor? John Rocker, like, you had to bring him back into our lives. I'll admit, I haven't thought about John Rocker since he flamed out not long after that Sports Illustrated interview.
Yep.
And this is what you got to do. It's like, we've gone on in the past about stop bringing in people like this to cause, drama and chaos.
Yes.
Your game doesn't need it. It's inherent in there, and you're good. And most of the time when you do this, it backfires spectacularly. Now, look, maybe it won't with Rocker. A point he's made in his interviews is, look, I've been in professional clubhouses, have found ways to integrate with people that are not necessarily like me, and maybe subscript that I think are distasteful. So maybe it won't blow up in Survivor. That's the hope, that it's just fine, and then he gets voted out for that he's probably a jerk. But maybe he doesn't fly out with the bigotry. But that's not why they cast him. They cast him to be a fire starter.
Okay,
why Survivor? Why?
And funny you should say that, because here's an interesting discussion that I had with Matt. He kind of figured out that the two people that were removed, we know the two people that were removed before the game started were women. He went through and looked at the relationships between all the people that are still in the game and determined that it's pretty likely that the two people who aren't playing were probably women in a relationship with each other, thus giving us 4 gays, 2 quote-unquote foreigners in the 20s, and then a single mother in Missy. Is this just created to actively troll John Rocker?
I can certainly understand why you'd have that impression. And you just think about that, and it's like, why do we love this show? Like, seriously, John, why do we spend so much time weekly with a show that has this streak in them? Like, oh, we gotta do this, that'll be great. And to answer my own question, it's because the show continually succeeds despite the wishes of the producers. And that was true from the very first season on. They keep trying stuff like this, and typically the show itself will course correct. It's like, you can give me your Coltons all you want. That fucker is going to be gone before you know it.
We discussed this summer how the whole Race Wars season concept was a terrible idea by the producers, and yet, in spite of itself, turned out to be a great season. One of our top 5 seasons.
So it's like, and then do you think their lesson is, see, we did it and we led to all this greatness? But it's like, no, the show will more often than not fix itself, even if you guys try to mess it up. Pearl Islands was a horrific idea that they threw in there, and again, still one of the best seasons, because the best part of it is once they're in, the players have agency. So if John Rocker tries to be what he is, he will not be long for the show.
I briefly mentioned the single mom in this group. We have 2 more to talk about, but very quickly though. Missy and Baylor, cheerleader mom and daughter. This struck me as a desperate attempt to recreate Laura and Sierra with cheap imitations. As, and I'm biased in this, but it was like cheap imitations of an already shoddy product, like someone trying to recreate Hydrox cookies instead of Oreos or something. Like, why Laura and Sierra? This is clearly them set up as, Baylor's going to vote out her mom at some point. And it's going to be so dramatic.
And that's right, Baylor. I knew Sierra Easton. I watched Sierra Easton. You my friend, are Sierra Easton.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be it. I don't know. I was just like, shrug. I keep coming back to it. Felt like Amazing Race casting. They gimmick pairs, Hey, these are the cowboys. These are the clowns. These are the Harlem Globetrotters. And these are the cheerleaders. It's just, neither of them made an impression at all for me. But, one episode, I'm not ruling out that they could. I guess one funny moment is with Missy being all like, because of 3 divorces, I've learned to trust my gut. It's like, your gut is stupid. Stop trusting that gut. Like, my wife was on there, like, she made that comment. Something like that. It's like, well, maybe you shouldn't. Because clearly it's not very good at picking people with whom you should align with.
Right. Did your brain learn from your gut's mistakes?
Because it's like, isn't there like a fool me once, fool me twice type deal here? So, maybe she should do the George Costanza bit, right? It's like, all right, my gut is telling me that this Jeremy guy is all right, so I ought to get this far away.
Exact opposite.
Drew, John, we're in this together. All
right, perfect lead in, by the way. Jeremy and Val, the last 2 we have to talk about. Jeremy seems to me incredibly likable. Like, I'm very worried that he's such a nice guy and that I like him so much because last season I liked Jatia a whole lot. That didn't turn out really well.
Yeah, Val, but before that, obviously, you were big on the Tyson train, and before that, you were on the Cochran. So maybe that's what's going on here, because, yes, while we were ambivalent about many people, I was high on Jeremy, and also, to a degree, Val. Not as much, probably not as much as other people, but after watching everything, I basically was like, I like Jeremy, Val, and Kelly, and then there's a couple other people that seem all right, and then I read a bunch of deaths. So Kelly was my pick to win, but Jeremy is already my favorite. That's true going in, and he only looked better as I think he's a legit contender right now. He's either going to be, either we saw the beginnings of a winner's edit in this episode, or at the very least a major story player whose ouster will be a big story. Right.
Someone that they're building up a good story around.
Mm-hmm. So some of it's just game mechanics, right? Whoever was going to win that first duel, send their loved one off and all of that, was going to get a feature tonight.
Right.
But it was more than that, right? They showed him making the early alliances, going out there. And obviously sometimes that's 2 edits, right? Either it could be, hey, this is how the game was won. The guy just went out there and did it. Or it's this person is playing too fast, too hard, too soon.
Yep. And flames out quickly.
But it didn't seem like that happened. Like, everybody he talked to seemed very receptive. They weren't like, oh, this guy's kind of pushy. Yep. And, maybe he's a very likable person. He's able to do that. It's also, I think, you have a little bit more leeway to do that when you are very clearly the most useful player on your tribe.
So I'm with you, though, on not having an opinion really strongly on Val.
She's spunky.
I guess. Yeah, I mean...
That's what I got.
Yeah, I don't dislike Val, but I'm not all on board. I know a lot of people were already like, yeah, Val's great, and I don't really see it there either. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with Jeremy, Dale, Kelly, Val to a lesser extent. And then I guess I'll be rooting for John just because I picked him for my team, but that's going to be grudgingly.
Yeah, so. I'm just hoping Jacqueline just stays around, and I'm okay if I forget that she's there. I hope everyone forgets she's there.
Exactly.
And then Final Five rolls around, I'm like, oh yeah, her.
She'll be the Invisibret of this season.
That's literally why I picked her. Is like, maybe she might be Jeffra, and I think she might. I think she the one that compared herself to Jeffra? I
think she might have been. Yeah.
I was like, wow, the blonde from the one season you've watched. Keith is rising with a bullet. Josh, again, he seemed really great, and then not so much. So he's got to repair that impression. He could win it back. Maybe he does have some reasoning, or maybe it just isn't damaging to him, and then he can do as you were suggesting, using the pawns. But that's what we have to work with so far.
And I want to get to one of our regular features, the 0% Club. But before I do, a friend of mine asked me to give the answers to the question that my wife and I always ask each other at the start of the season. Who is your favorite hot player? And I think you already explained it earlier, but it's got to be Kelly.
Yeah.
Just because even though Jacqueline is a very attractive girl, she's so remarkably bland that I could never pick her. And so then I had the fun task of turning this question around to my wife. Okay, who's the hottest guy on this cast? I was like, here, take your time. Look through the videos. Look through the pictures. See what you think. And I heard a whole lot of, oof. Finally, she says, can I just pick people based on how they look from afar? And so all she could do was narrow it down to John or Drew. And I could not stop laughing. I was like, wait. Let me go back and show you the picture of Drew making his model face.
Oh, well, then of course he'd have to win. My favorite thing is like people are like, "Oh, is Drew really a model?" And it's like, well, no. Look, as soon as you see his poses in his photos, clearly that guy's done some modeling work.
Everybody
or
else,
watched Zoolander too often.
They're all smiling in their pictures, they're posing, and he's doing that bizarre like half open mouth thing. I'm doing it right now as if you can see me.
Yeah.
Like
We can hear it
sexy
almost.
model mouth.
Yeah. And it's like, well, look, he's no Jeremiah, but yes, he's a male model. Yeah, I mean, John is Jacqueline, just blandly attractive. He has symmetry, I mean, he still has the hair that his mom brushed for him when he went to school, but yeah, Kelly is a nice-looking lady. Obviously, a couple issues for me is that's my sister's name, and my sister is also blonde and thin. So I'm not attracted to her, but I would say she wins the attractive standings. Exactly. And also she looks like the type that will probably be able to maintain that beauty for what I'm hoping is 39 days on the island. Look, Julie has the parts, but they are so manufactured that it's just kind of like, meh. Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, if she bounces up to the platform, there will be part of me that's like, hey, you've set off sensors for me. But at the same time, it's just like, whatever. You're a real housewife of Atlanta. Isn't Jeremy the best looking dude?
Oh, yeah, for the guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
He's pretty well built. He shrunk his stomach before going on.
Yeah. I'll just say, my wife's not into the bald-headed look, so she doesn't sound like she's John Rocker.
That's right. 0% Club. This is something we started last year when we feel a player has entered an area where they have literally 0% chance of winning. Not that they have very little chance of winning, that we don't think they're going to win, that we're predicting they are not, but that we think that they have demonstrated something that we're just writing them off completely. And to show you how successful we were, in the very first episode of last season, I inducted Tony. So,
how did that turn out for you again? I forget.
Not so well.
No?
But we're getting back on that horse, and we're trying it again this year. To your credit, you never inducted Tony. So everybody you put in, you were right about. Our friend Matt was always saying, mathematically, you have a very good chance. And I was kind of like, I don't. Because about 5 episodes in, I'm like, I think Tony's going to win this season.
Yep.
I was right. Or at the very least, I think Tony could win this season. Because he was the kind of player who was like, it could fall off any episode.
Yep.
But we're doing it again. I will probably be a little more reticent in inducting people, but I'm still doing it tonight. John, you got somebody that you want to put in?
There is one guarantee, and we already hinted at it right
So
before
should we say it on the count of 3?
Let's do that.
1, 2, 3. John Rocker.
Yes. No doubt.
No doubt. I mean, we didn't.
That man is not winning.
He actually didn't have a bad episode. He wasn't offending anybody. He was a hoss in that challenge.
He was strangely almost likable.
Yeah, he was bringing his tribe together. He was flinging them up that wall. Like, he is a strong dude. He is going to be a major asset in the team phase.
Also, a major ass.
Yes. But, yes, we already know that he is not a good person, most likely. By all indications, by the things that have come out of his own mouth. But also, people already know who he is. Wes figured it out. His dad was figuring it out. I believe somebody else was already figuring it out. I think Val and Jeremy.
Yes, they knew.
So they know that he's a famous athlete, even if they don't know his story. Although, I don't know why you would remember who John Rocker is without remembering the Sports Illustrated interview. So, I don't think he would, I'm not sure if he was ever even an all-star. He, followed the typical closer path, which dominant for a very short time and then flames out. Almost all of them do that, including even his alter ego John Wetland, who was succeeded by Mariano Rivera. So even if he was a nice guy, people would be like, "This is the $1 million baseball player. We're not voting for him." And also, he's clearly the biggest physical threat. So unless he goes on some kind of Tom Westman streak, you vote him out just for being a threat. So even if he was a nice guy, which he is not, 0%.
Yep. Anybody else you want to put in there?
No, I'm not that stupid.
Me neither. I'm good with John Rocker.
No, and that's the other thing. You can't put somebody who was voted out. You have to call your shot beforehand. This season, we're also going to do one more recurring feature for as long as is possible.
I like this one.
if you were watching for at the end of the episode, instead of next week on Survivor, they say this season on Survivor. And I would almost guarantee that this is because the live Big Brother finale was following them up. So people that had turned their channels early.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah, I bet.
I was sitting there thinking, like, what the hell is the point of this?
Yeah, I think it was to hook that audience, that way people were turning in live. Like, because they did that cutaway, like, hey, this is going to happen soon.
It does make sense.
Yeah, they show a flash, a bunch of different imagery mixed in with, blood dropping over a stone skeleton of like, blah, 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 I hate this person, I don't care if he goes. And none of it really gave anything away. It was like Mad Men type editing, where they just like people talking, entering rooms, saying things, nothing. But the one thing that they gave away is somebody is going to quit this season.
Well, we got a soundbite that indicated that someone might quit.
Yes.
There's no response, so it could be someone says no when Jeff says, are you quitting?
Yeah. But we're going to play it as though somebody is, especially because people just talking about quitting is commonplace in Survivor. Although people actually quitting is also becoming commonplace.
Yes,
so for every episode until it happens, you and I are going to do a power rank, what we call the quitter power rankings, and we are going to try and surmise which of these people seem most likely to quit. So for every episode, we have to guess at least one person up to 3 people.
And I only have one person.
All right, I'll let you start. I actually just picked 3 because there isn't a clear quitter yet, so I have a few ideas of maybe why they would. But who do you get?
I'm betting mine's on your list, though. It's John.
Yes.
I think that we got tipped to John's father having some medical issues because at some point in the season, he's going to get the Jenna Maraska edit and have to go home because something's wrong with his dad.
Yeah, so based on precedent alone, I have John at number 2, although I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into the 3. My number 1 pick, I picked Reed. Just because I just feel like this could be an emotional response to the ouster of Josh.
You think it's like a... Okay.
And, oh my God, that's really bad stereotyping if I was like, it's like Colton. Although that's not... Colton quit on his own accord, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, his loved one was...
Yeah, Caleb lasted much longer.
R.I.P.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Yeah. I think Josh, just based on what I saw, could really get himself into trouble. And... Reed admittedly was an emotional guy, and like in their interviews, I believe they were talking that like that could be their undoing. So it could just be something like that, just like, are you sure you really want to quit? And it's like, yes, because this isn't fun for me anymore, something like that. So I just picked him out, and I guess also because I had an opportunity to talk about him. I don't know if we did otherwise.
Apparently.
And then my number 3, I picked Natalie.
The other twin.
Yeah.
It took me a second. I was like, Natalie.
I know, actually.
I just call them twinnies.
I wrote it down as Natalie, and then I had to look, which one's Natalie again? It's similar reasoning to Reed. Just, her...
once she loses her 20 powers, she's
exactly.
going home.
And then,
I gotcha.
And then maybe she finds herself in the right... Like, things aren't working out for her. Her sister's already gone. And by all indications, they are people that run hot and cold. That could catch her in a moment like that, and she quits like the chick who quit last season. So that's my quitter power rankings for week 1. I have no faith that they are anywhere close to being accurate, except for the John logic at least is sound.
Yes. There's at least some precedent for something like that happening. Not that Survivor always follows precedent, as we learned with Tony's win last season.
Yes. We finish every episode by predicting what's going to happen next week. Thankfully, because... Yeah, and we didn't put this on the breakdown. So we're just...
this is really going to be pulled right out of the butt cheeks.
Yeah. Thankfully, we don't have to account for Redemption Island. That always made it a big mess. So we have to predict who we think will get voted out. In this stage of the game, we like to predict one from each tribe, because... who are we to be able to predict who's going to win in a shuffleboard game or assemble a puzzle at the quicker than the other team? Which I'm predicting right now is going to be a puzzle.
This is going to be tough because I don't even know that I know the tribe breakdowns for sure, but I think I've got at least enough of an approximation of them in my head.
All right, so we'll start with the tribe that lost tonight. That's the Orange Tribe, I believe. Well, I'm reading it.
Yeah, don't even try.
Oh, come on. You don't want to rob people of my Hispanic pronunciation.
At some point, I'll learn what the tribe names are, and I'll do them for you in Spanish.
Make sure you're just really exaggerating roll R's. Not that there are.
Yeah.
But
Hey, I'm a Floridian. I can roll my R's.
When they do something on the south coast of France, I'll bring my Canadian French in there.
Ooh, very nice.
So, the tribe that lost, who do you think is going home next week?
So I would assume that we're going to continue on the voting out a female path.
I think that holds up one more week, yeah. I don't think it's going to go all the way through, but...
No, I think it does last one more time. Because you may recall that in the last Blood versus Water, we started with an all-male alliance on one tribe.
Until Sierra the Amazing broke it up.
Yeah. So that lasted about 2 votes. Anyway, it's not going to be Baylor, because she probably has an in with Josh. That leaves us with Jacqueline and Val, right?
Yep.
I think your window dressing might be going home. I'll say Jacqueline.
I can see that. She was invisible. But along the same lines of thinking, I think it's Val. And basically, she was slightly in danger tonight, and then I think Dale just didn't feel good about voting her out because the game had thrown a twist at her. And also, I think Dale was threatened by the twins. And maybe rightly so. But I think she was the one majorly pushing for a women's alliance, as we were shown. And some of that is just because she was.
That's a defense mechanism, though.
Yeah. Well, I think she was playing. Yeah, she was playing catch up. She didn't have time to integrate properly. So she's kind of like, hey, we're all women. Don't vote me out. That's basically it. But this is also the shallow tribe, right? This is the tribe of the younger, and Val is the older. Like it's not hard to.
Good logic.
Yeah, anticipate Jacqueline being able to integrate with Wes and Alec and Josh.
As the counterpoint, the people who are actually running the alliance would be Dale, John, Josh, who are all older. So maybe they keep Val around because she is older.
I could see Dale genuinely pushing for that because he doesn't want to get along the lines of thinking that old people are bad. But I'm not sure they were. Like, Dale put it out there. Let's get rid of Nadia, and he got his way. But, 3 days in, people are just kind of like, sure, whatever. It allows me to defer decision-making, which I think was going on, right? Which is also why I think that, if they were to go again, that's why I think this little tribal breakdown would continue, because it's kind of like, we don't have to quite form anything just yet. But I think, I could see Alec, Wes, Baylor, Josh, Jacqueline becoming the actual core alliance, Rocker being, their useful ox, and Dale just kind of, it'll be up to see what happens with Dale. So Val is my pick from that tribe.
Okay. So other side.
Other side, we got the Blues, the
So off the top of my head, my first guess, other 20.
Yeah, that's solid. That's pretty solid, just because other 20.
Yep.
So, from what we saw, Jeremy was forming bonds with Kelly, with Natalie, other 20. And I think we saw him talking to Missy. Yes, because that's when she brought up her, I am an excellent judge of character when it comes to men. And then Keith. So I could see something kind of like that. I think that could protect Natalie to a degree, especially because I think she becomes less threatening now.
That's true.
From the very start, Julie was my pick as first boot, and I don't really see any reason for that to change. I think John and Drew are useful muscle at this point, but they're clearly not socially integrated, so I don't think they're very threatening either. So I don't know why you'd go after them. Julie is fodder. You take her out.
Okay.
And also, that removes John Rocker from being a challenge threat in this Little Heroes game, because now he doesn't get to play.
Ooh, look at you with your logic. I don't think these people are smart enough to parse that out.
No, I mean, it's a tough thing to anticipate, but honestly, if anybody's going to think that and go down that road, I have faith in Jeremy, if only because he just recently experienced it.
All right, so let's, first of all, before we even get to our self-promotion. No, actually, this counts as self-promotion.
This is the self-promotion part of the podcast.
It is.
So we hinted at earlier that we, all summer, spent time talking about the various past seasons of Survivor. When we say various, we mean all 28. Yes. Although, for me, only 25.
No. All 28.
Yes. So, we brought on our friends to talk about every season of Survivor. The reason why is they were to make their case of why these seasons were great or not so great. Because we will very soon be ranking every single season of Survivor, 1 through 28. You will get the official rankings of this show, and thus will be the only rankings you will ever need.
Yes, so if you go to our website, which is purplerockpodcast.wordpress.com, you can find a post on there called, I believe, Survivor Rankings, the guests. You can see which guests ranked each season, I guess. I don't know how well to describe that. They sent us their rankings. I posted them online so you can see what all their breakdowns were. Ours are not up there yet. We actually have ours now, and we'll be breaking them to you on a podcast at a very near future date.
So yes, if you're fans of the show but decided to not spend all summer checking out whether there was new Survivor talk, we do encourage you to go back and listen to them, because obviously a big part of the appeal of this show, both Survivor and literally our podcast, is that the past lives on. We talk about the past, we reference it very much. And in this case, that's what we did. And we got into it pretty deep. Our original thought was we would spend about half an hour with each person, and it was generally about an hour and a half each. So lots of Survivor reminiscing. And I think you will find some entertainment in that.
Yeah, and we got about 3 or 4 seasons in each person's podcast. So you can all look them up by which particular seasons might have been your favorite, which were your least favorite, see what we thought of them, what our guests thought of them. You can listen to them at any time. That's the nice thing. They're not very time sensitive. So whenever you have moments to kill at work because you can't stand your boss or your coworkers, put your headphones in, listen to those podcasts.
Yes, these are evergreen until the end of the season, where we'll have to figure out where San with Ulster versus 1 or 2 fits in. Otherwise, if you want to keep up with the show, you can follow us on Twitter at Purple Rock Pod. You can send us emails at purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. Follow the aforementioned blog. Or you could drop us a voicemail on Skype. Just Skype JR Purple Rock, and it'll give you the opportunity to leave a message. If we like your message, if you're asking a question, we'll play it on next week's show. And what else we got?
That's pretty much it.
So, we got another season of Survivor ahead of us. We're not super psyched about it going in, but, it's Survivor, and we like Survivor. And I will say there are probably a great many players in the many seasons that we talked about all summer that we would not have thought highly about if we just read their things. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm looking forward to talking about it with you, John.
To be fair, I don't think there's a bridal shop in this cast.
It's Kelly. Don't say that about my Kelly.
How dare you? No one can compete with Kim. Anyway, on that note, theme music.